Hey everybody, welcome back to Building Better Bodies with Deven and the Docs. This is Dr. Roberto De Sena, Dr. Amir Rashidian, Deven Brady, and our special guest, Leah Meitzler. Did I say it correctly?
Yes.
Meitzler. And by the way, she has a great YouTube channel. If you didn't watch the last video, make sure you look her up and watch it. And we'll tell you more information about it. But we got into a really, really good conversation just a minute ago about like, hey, how hard do you train? Like, do you like try to put on all the weight in the gym and like lift it, and what do you do, and are you gonna hurt yourself, and have you been injured in the past and all that stuff? So I'm gonna open up with you, Leah. Just tell us, like, how important is it to really push yourself? Let's start with that.
I think it's very important to a certain extent. I think a lot of people in the gym, their ego is very high.
Yeah.
So they're wanting to impress everybody around them. So they are going to push themselves, but maybe a little too much. I think what you do see a lot in the gym, and I think a lot of guys do this more or less than girls. I think girls sometimes don't push themselves hard enough. Because they think they're very weak, especially when they're first starting out. I think a lot of guys go in the gym and they're like, yeah, I can do this, and they stack on all the weights, and they, as soon as they get down, they're like, oh my god, I can't do this, and then like maybe something snaps, something pops, or
Exactly.
Something.
That's when
bad
they come to see us.
Yeah.
Encourage those
So I to a certain extent, it is good to push yourself, but to know your limits. I think that's the most important thing.
I am always so impressed when someone has a decent amount of weight and they're doing higher than 2-3 reps and they're using good form, and you can tell they are refusing to compromise their form. I think that's just fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a really great conversation to have now. I mean, we're here recording this on the early part of December, but I mean, we're depending on when this goes live, when this goes out. Obviously, we're at a point in the year where we're going to start to see a big influx in most gyms of new lifters, right? So men, women of all types, all shapes, all sizes, all goals, trying to see where they fit, trying to, maybe get their lives back on track from a physical perspective, trying to lose a little weight, build a little muscle, what have you. So what Leah is saying is very true, and that's you're going to have a lot of people that come into these commercial gym settings where they're just surrounded by all various comfort levels and experience levels in the gym, and they're gonna. My hope is, and that I think you're stressing, and it's a great point, is don't necessarily look to the top dogs, the men and the women at the top of the pile, and seek to emulate them right off the bat. Right? That's probably not the best idea. Certainly, motivation levels are going to be high around time of the new year to get committed to this goal and execute, but let's keep a little bit of common sense about us. Let's understand that it's a different experience level, it's a different comfort level, and start. My advice as a fitness professional is start light. Start everything light. Form first. Form and function first over weight. A weight is a tool, right? It's not the end goal. So, as a hypertrophy specialist, I teach all of my clients about the importance of form, the importance of engaging with the muscle that we're actually working, and effective weight training. And it's after utilizing these techniques, you quickly realize that is paramount to the weight that you're using. And the weight that you're using will go up inevitably as you increase your strength, increase your tolerance, increase your endurance, etc. But it's a really great point to make. And that's that, leave the ego at the door. Everyone started somewhere, right? So get in and get started, and err on the side of caution always, because when we're talking about the gym, these companies have liability insurance for a reason, because it's a dangerous place to be. There's a lot of weight. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's a lot of injuries that can happen at a split second, at a moment's notice. So don't put yourself in that place. Don't put yourself in that position where you're really taking a lot of unnecessary risks, especially if you don't have to.
I remember when we started working out, we didn't pick up much weight at all, and you would just say, if you squeeze the muscle on the way up and at the top, and then lower it slowly, you'll feel it. You don't need a lot of weight, and it's a fact. And I would do that, and I'd say, I've never felt like this before.
Right.
I've never been this sore before. I've never felt the connection to that muscle as much.
Right.
Now, when we're going heavier, it's automatic. I still do the same. I still do the squeeze. I still do the slower negatives and all that stuff. And again, if I could throw the weight up and down and maybe lift just a little bit heavier, but I think that's when I would be susceptible to more injury.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's another thing is the mind to muscle connection. So when I first started working out, I had no idea. You know, I didn't know what the glutes properly felt like when activated.
Right.
So that is another thing that everybody, when they're first starting, they need someone like him to tell them that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, don't just go in there and do that squat. Like, why are you doing that squat? What muscles are you trying to work? Or different positions that you can put your hands and your feet to activate different muscle groups. I think that's very, very important, which is something that I had to learn along the way, just watching personal trainers and from a distance, you know. not next to them. But just watching people and form. Again, that's the most important thing is practice your form first and then focus on the mind to muscle and then go to weights. Like, don't just stack it on, do it and see where you go from there. It's not the way to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even with great form, you know, injuries can happen, but once the form breaks down, you're at that much likely for that to happen, you know. So I know with you guys, you've dealt with those in the past. So Deven, if you want to touch on your experience.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm very blessed, knock on wood. I've only had one significant traumatic sports injury in the entirety of my life. So again, you know, I'm very fortunate, very blessed to have that. But this injury occurred in 2016 at a time when I was training very, very heavily for bodybuilding competition, trying to put on a lot of size, a lot of muscle density, a lot of strength. So I knew in order to do this, I was going to have to push up near my maximum capacity with all of my rep ranges in the hypertrophic range of 8 to 12 reps. So yes, I typically work in a high rep range, right? I think you could argue that most injuries occur in the lower rep range because the assumption is you're working with maximal poundage, right? So, you know, if your back is going to give on a squat, it's probably going to give as you get higher to your 1 rep maximum potential than it would with a weight that you can comfortably perform 10 to 12 reps. Right. However, this doesn't mean that injuries cannot occur in this rep range. And I'm a really great example of that. Again, this particular injury occurred when I was on an incline Smith press. I did have a spotter. You know, again, this is before I was a fitness professional, but still, you know, I've been in the gym for many, many years, very comfortable executing this lift at a very, you know, high proficiency. But the issue is that I think looking back, hindsight being 2020, what I failed to realize, and a lot of times the old pros in bodybuilding, men and women, great men and women in this sport, they always say, listen to your body, right? Listen to your body. But when I was young, I was a little bit stubborn. And if I really look back and think about critically that time around November of 2016, my chest was sending me a lot of signals that it was very tight, specifically in the connection point to the humerus, like right underneath the deltoid on both sides. I felt that my chest at that time was a weak point, so I was hammering chest like 2-3 times a week, just throwing in extra sets, extra volume where it really didn't belong. Again, young, stubborn, hard-headed, you know, novice-like approach. And it just so happened that while executing a chest press, I probably suffered a stage 2, stage 3 muscle-to-muscle tear in the left pectoral muscle. So, you know, thankfully I avoided catastrophic injury. It was with poundage close to 300 pounds. So, I mean, it could have been bad. But again, because of the people that I had around me, the spotter, all of those things, we avoided, you know, even worse catastrophe. But so here's an example of somebody who is as seasoned as you can potentially be, as comfortable performing an exercise as you can be, utilizing a Smith machine, which is designed to alleviate a lot of that pressure, you know, of having to balance, you know, a Olympic bar in space, and yet the muscle still tore. So, you know, I don't want to say that to scare people watching this into saying, well, if these guys are saying that an injury can happen at any time, regardless of circumstance, then what hope do I have? You know, but that's the fact of the matter.
You could also get hit by lightning after you walk out of the gym.
That is also true. That is a very good point, Dr.
With a torn pec.
Yeah, that's right. That's on the way to the ER. Yeah. So, but the fact of the matter is that if I peel back that extra layer and say, did this really just happen? happen, like out of the blue, or were there signs that I perhaps noticed and ignored that had I not, had I facilitated a better stretching program, a better warm-up and cool-down program, myofascial release, tennis ball work, lacrosse ball work, foam rolling, all of the techniques that somebody like me now as a fitness professional preaches the importance of, it perhaps this could have been avoided. It's very possible that this injury could have been avoided. And as a physique athlete, as an aesthetic athlete, I will bear, a divot in that left pec for the rest of my life, because there's just not the same amount of muscle tissue there in that connective region, because you can't surgically repair a muscle to muscle tear. If the tendon had removed from the bone, they'll bolt the tendon back into the bone. But if muscle tears from muscle, they can't sew it back together, for lack of a better term. So yeah, so it'll be there for all time. It just healed naturally, and here we are, So but it did change the way I train chest for the rest of my life.
Leah, any injuries? Injuries, and I guess how you push through those, or how you go about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I in my head didn't think I was injured. When I was squatting, I would feel the pain, like a pain in my right side. Like I would think it would be my hip, so I thought it was my hip. So I just kind of started avoiding squats altogether. And then also, like, when I was squatting, I would put my hand up, and it would kind of send like tingling sensations through my arm. So I was like, you know what, maybe I have the wrong form. So I kind of just avoided it altogether, and or if I did squat, it would be very light. So I wouldn't be able to push myself, or I did not push myself like I could have, because of those issues. So I kind of just stuck with other exercises that would work out the same muscles, the quads and glutes. So coming to the chiropractor, I realized that
Thank you very much.
Tell
them.
Which I highly recommend, because I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't seek any advice as to why that was happening. I did go to someone that does the myofascial release, but she didn't tell me that like anything was wrong. I didn't have any issues, because I did explain to her what was going on. But until coming here and getting adjusted and getting the x-rays, I did not know that my hips weren't aligned properly, which is connected to all the nerves in your body as well. So that's what was causing the numbness through my arms and the pain that was in my lower back. So up until, it's been years that I've had that issue, up until now, and which is, I want to say, over 5 years I've been working out. I never knew. So that was the issue, but it wasn't, I would say if you are struggling to find a reason why that's happening, definitely find it out before you push yourself to the limit, or try to push yourself in the gym with whatever it is, before it leads to a major issue, like he was explaining, with muscle tears or broken bones. You don't know what could happen. So I was lucky that it didn't lead to anything further.
I want to caution everybody for one thing too, is when you train hard, you release endorphins in your body. Endorphins and kephalins, it's the same as morphine. That's why some people, when they push really hard, they get the runner's high, where they don't feel the pain anymore. They don't feel the exhaustion. They can just run forever and ever till they drop. And but so the chronic nagging stuff that are there, that's why, like, when you train hard and you train regularly, you can deal with that and you go, okay, it hurts a little bit, but then it goes away. It's because those endorphins come in, and you shouldn't be ignoring those things, because that's when it eventually can lead to something really bad, like a herniated disc.
Right. And I'll catapult off of that with one last comment, and this is based on what it is that we're talking about here, and that's that, I know that my situation could have been avoided because I have learned to look for the signs as a result of my training, my accreditation as a fitness professional, and the signs that I look for. I would like to caution everybody entering a commercial gym setting is utilize the staff there. Like I don't want there to be this preconceived notion that the help of any and all fitness professionals comes at a price. Because at the end of the day, you know, I can't speak for everyone, I can't speak for my colleagues, but I have really great conversations every day with people that grab me on the floor and ask me a question. And no, I don't process their credit card before giving them an answer. It's just at the end of the day, right? Yeah, I put that little clicker on my phone and just have them swipe it down. It's just not how it works. So if you don't have the comfort, you know, diagnosing or understanding a pain from a twinge, from soreness, from numbness, from tingling, there are people who can help. No, I can't diagnose, but we can have a conversation. What are you feeling? What does it feel like? How about when you do this? How about when you do this? It's part of our curriculum as fitness professionals to help guide the conversation. And if I can identify it as an issue that's outside of my purview, it's very important to me as a fitness professional that I have wonderful relationships with people like you guys here at Mid-Atlantic, that I can push people your way.
And we don't charge for advice either. You call the office and say, I have a question for one of the doctors. We'll get on the phone with you and we might ask you a couple questions back. And if it's something we can answer on the phone, we'll do it. If it's something you need to come in for an evaluation, we can talk about that. But we're happy to talk to you, and there's no charge for that as well.
That's right. So when you have questions, ask. Like, don't just let it be like, I'm going to work through it. You know, that's a famous stubborn, hard-headed answer. But just grab us. If you're in the gym, if you're at One Life South Frederick, grab me, grab my colleagues. It's a wonderful team of trusted professionals over there. Just ask. You know, if you're at all curious, ask, because you asking and then having the conversation could avoid injury, and in some cases serious.
Because ultimately and ideally, you do need to push yourself. I don't think you'll get changes unless you go beyond what you are capable of. If an exercise is easy, it will not cause change in your body.
That's right.
Just a quick story. We went to a river at a park, and I had my two dogs. They're both boxers, and my wife, my kids were there. And the dogs jumped in the river. And normally this river is really low, like it doesn't even come up very high. You know, it's probably like a foot deep. This time, I guess it had been raining or whatever, so the smaller of the two boxers started floating away, and I could see she couldn't keep up with the current. So I grabbed the big one because she was a little stronger. I grabbed her, I pulled her up, I took my wallet and phone out of my pocket, gave it to my wife, and I jumped in. And I went after the little one, and I could see her way down there. She's pretty much under the water, but I can see her nose come up, and she takes an air, and I can see her ears, and she's facing me, but she's getting further and further away, you know, just the current. And I go, okay, well, the current's pushing me, so maybe I can swim with the current. I couldn't. If I picked my feet up, it just wasn't working. There was rocks on the bottom, so I go, I need to run in this water that way. And so it took literally 45 minutes of going into that river further, and it kept getting deeper and deeper too. And that was the one time where I could feel burning in my lungs, and my legs were burning, and you can't stop. Right. My dog's gonna die.
Right.
And I'm not sorry. I can see her, like, the only reason she hasn't given up is because every time she picks her head out of the water, she sees me coming for her.
Right.
And so if I quit, she'll quit. She's gone.
Right.
So I kept going, and I've never felt that burn, that you know. And I go, that's what we need to be able to do, because I never would have done that. If you'd put me on the treadmill, I would have quit. Yeah. With that intensity, I'd have quit 10 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, but I would not have gone for 45 minutes like that. Right. And I kept praying, going, oh God, give me strength for one more step. Right. I just need to go one more. And literally each step was painful, and you just keep going. Well, then I remember that, and yesterday we did a legs workout.
And disclaimer, no dogs were harmed during our session.
That's right. But it was
zero.
It was the first time I had to lie down at the end.
You did, yeah.
And then I literally had to lie down, and I was having trouble catching my breath, and I felt, you know, serious fatigue. Yeah. So and you know, and so here's what Deven said. He said, look around. Nobody in this gym is training as hard as you just did. So, you know, we got to figure out a safe way to go beyond your mental barriers because the mind quits before the body does.
Mm-hmm.
And another comment with that. So they actually do say that when you think you're done, your body's only at like 40%.
Yeah.
Only
Yeah.
at 40%. So
That's
I
right.
think when you are at that point to giving up, whether it's with running or pushing yourself to get that last rep, remember why you're doing it. Now, if it's gonna hurt you, absolutely don't do it.
Exactly.
But
that's why you need a
remember,
trainer.
remember why you're doing it. Remember what your goal is in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's competing or just doing it for yourself to lose weight, to get bigger.
Mhm.
Just remember why you're doing it and push yourself a few more minutes if you can.
Yeah.
You know, and
Right.
just get past that point.
Hopefully, knowing how hard people push themselves, you'll have a little more respect for those guys on stage.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Because you know they paid that price.
Mhm.
You earned that
Absolutely.
stage, and it's not easy.
That's right. Very good. Very good.
What should they do?
If you would like to follow Deven around at
Yeah.
One Life South,
Yeah, I'm
you can
there.
reach out to him. He's at all the One Lives really.
Yeah.
Miss Leah, you can follow her on YouTube. Leah Meitzer. Can you spell your last name for them again one more
Last
time?
name is Meitzler.
Yeah, so you'll be able to see this video on our channel and her channel. We're gonna cross over, and hopefully this will be one of many to come.
Yeah.
So.
Take care, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for joining us.
Thank you for watching.
Good job.
Perfect, guys.